Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the December 3rd meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start public comment, I'd just like to have send out some well wishes to Ricky. His father's in the hospital, and we wish him a quick recovery. And if we could have a quick moment of silence for that. Okay, thank you. And next is public comment.
Lori Davis, Buxton School Road. I'm just looking if the Board of Selectmen in the next couple weeks could tell me. I noticed that the Ford Taurus is parked at the police department. It's been there for a little over a week. The Crown Vic, which the lieutenant used to take home, apparently is not going home now. At least it hasn't been going home at night. And the police chief has been driving it, which is, depending upon what's going on, he was assigned the Ford Taurus. But I've also seen him driving our newest cruiser, and I'm a little confused about that because I was under the impression that the new cruisers were specifically for the patrol people, and I may have that wrong. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment?
Greg McDowell, Sugar Hill. When I was just coming up to the meeting tonight, I noticed the lights were on in the town hall. Who was ever in there last left lights on? That cost us money.
No, we had the fire alarms checked today.
Yeah.
And somebody went out and left the lights on.
All right, I'll go over there before I go home. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank Campana. A couple of things. I'll get the touchiest one out of the way first. If I can last for tonight till you get to review minutes, I think you still have to review minutes of November 5th. And a couple of meetings ago, I made a comment on that about what was said about the ambulance, a response about the reason for the ambulance rate increase, and that it was attributed to operating costs. And I know Selectman Hippler said, well, the person probably misspoke. So I'm concerned about the minutes, that you don't try to, change that, change that wording, because I don't think there's anybody in the world that knows, what was in that person's mind when they were speaking. So I hope that stays like it is. Like I said, that's the touchiest one. And then in regards to the public auction that was held on the 17th, are there any final numbers as a result of that yet? And I think I did the math right. There was a little over $204,000 in sales, from that day. And I was curious to know, probably the net amount. I know the auctioneer takes some, from the sellers. There's a seller's premium, I guess, and then there's a buyer's premium. So at least I think that's the way they work.
Well, if you call up the office and in the morning, they'll give you the numbers, Frank.
Well,
Okay.
No,
Or you want to
it
give
hasn't
them?
completed yet, right?
no, because, want me to answer?
Go ahead.
I
you
usually
answer
don't
now.
during public comment because I don't think it's appropriate, but I will. The auction, you jotted down the numbers, but that doesn't necessarily mean that
what-
we're gonna close. Okay?
Okay.
Because what can happen is after somebody goes away, they have 30 to 45 days to close. And a lot of these people have hired title companies.
Okay. all
So
right.
if the title doesn't come back clear, they can say, I'm all set, not gonna take it.
I see.
Then it can go to bidder number 2. If bidder number 2 wants to take it, they can. But
I
at
see.
the end of the
Okay.
day, we may still retain it if they want to walk away.
Okay, so there's still more ongoing.
It's up to the buyer, it's buyer beware, so the
Right,
buyer can
right.
go hire whomever they'd like to do a title search, which
Right.
is the proper thing to do if you're gonna buy something.
Okay, So-
Because that goes through the registry, that goes through everything, because we're only given a quitclaim deed, we're not given a warranty deed.
yes, yes.
So if they're gonna go and invest some money into something they can't do anything with, or there's not clear title,
Yeah.
why bother?
Right,
The only thing they're out is the deposit. If they walk away, we split the deposit with the auctioneer.
okay,
So the numbers won't be finalized until almost the end of the year, because they have to close by the end of the year.
okay, all right, so
So
I can.
I
work
won't
on that.
know.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
We're in the middle of
Yeah.
working through
Because
them.
I've never been to one of these, or I know
No, me
nothing
neither.
about it,
It's an
so
eye-opener.
I just wanted to know what the net amount might be, so.
Yeah, well, if I had a crystal ball, I'd gladly share, but I don't. Because I don't know who's gonna and who's not. A
Sure.
lot of people have reached out, a lot of people have not.
Sure, okay. So
Who pays
I can-
recording fees?
I can wait.
They do.
They do, okay,
They pay all the fees, and they
Okay.
pay the 10%.
okay.
So,
Okay, fine.
okay?
Any other public comment?
Good evening, Richard Butt. To follow up on that, I looked up a couple of the lots that were sold on the tax kiosk, and I'm assuming most of these were deeded to the town because of non-payment of taxes.
Mhm.
What happens with the taxes that are owed on those properties?
What do you mean?
When the town owns it, there's no taxes on it.
Right, but when we deeded it, there was an X amount that was due us still.
And is that going to be paid by the buyer of the property, or is that coming out of
Well,
the sale price?
No, the only minimums we set were the ones that were 3 years. And the ones that are older than 3 years, it's, I don't want to say it's a write-off, but we took what we could get.
What do you mean by that?
So some of them were in the 90s that were taken by taxes.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been a tax bill since the 90s, but I'm sure there was an outstanding tax as to why we took it. So we don't go back and track all that. It just, we take what we got.
Okay.
That's why
I
we took
noticed
it
in
out.
some of them, and I know you don't want to carry on the conversation, but
Yeah.
just one thing on the taxes and penalties associated with non-payment of taxes. In some of those properties, the one that was sold, I believe, was $15,000 or $20,000 in arrears on taxes.
Could be.
Yeah, it's looking through the tax kiosks, it stopped when the property was deeded to the town. Are you saying that money is, we're not going to capture that money? Or
Depends on how old it is. How old was it?
Oh, it's back to well, I think you deeded it in 2013, so it was around 2012 when the money was out.
Yeah. So we took what we got for it.
Has that money been counted as revenue?
I'd have to ask somebody that knows more than me.
For the
I
town?
don't honestly know that, and I'm not trying
I
to, I
thought
don't
it
know
was
that.
always carried as money owed to the town, even though we don't have cash
Yeah.
at hand.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I'd have to
Right.
ask that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Could I give you a call during the week or
Yeah.
next week?
Sure.
I have a concern about the town website and the lack of information on the website and information that's not on the website. Same thing, I guess. Information that's obsolete. I wanted to get some information on what's been going on with the Board of Fire Wards regarding their billing increase for ambulance fees, as well as the proposed contract for the fire chief. I looked online, and there are no minutes online.
And here.
Hmm?
Isn't it in the town clerk's office either?
There are no minutes online for 2018, none,
For,
for the Board of Fire Wards.
you'd have to speak to them.
Well, who's responsible for the town website to make sure information gets put up there on a timely
You'd
manner?
have to talk to the Board of Fire Wards, because they're responsible for
Really?
themselves, yeah.
Well, let me read a letter to you then, that was sent from the town clerk's office to the town administrator, saying that we have not received minutes for April, May, June, July, and August for the Board of Fire Wards. So I think we're responsible, Jack, to make sure the
Well-
information is up there. I think there's a process in place to
It's,
assure that.
you know, again, Dick, probably you're gonna have to talk to the Board of Firewoods and see where the minutes
I
are.
don't-
I mean,
I
this
don't
is public comment. We don't have all that information, so I mean,
I'm not-
ask, that's probably the first stop, to ask them where they are.
I'm not asking for where the minutes are. The fact that they don't exist is a problem.
Maybe they do, who knows? They may have them and the town clerk hasn't got them. So, I mean, I think the first stop is to check with them.
Okay, so we have not received minutes for April, May, June, July, and August. Is an indication that the town clerk doesn't have them, which is where the minutes are kept. I believe the town of Weare, that website, is responsible to make sure the minutes of all the boards, committees, and commissions are up there in a timely manner. There's not one set of minutes, there's one set of minutes of all of 2018 for Park and Recreation. So who should I contact there, Park and Recreation, find out why the minutes are up there? On the website?
Again, contact the head of the Parks and Recreation. They're responsible for taking their minutes. We're not policing them. Did you police every organization when you were here as a selectman?
Yeah.
And
We
you
put a
check?
process in place, Jack, to make sure that
Well,
if...
then we'll have to look into that, so.
Well, don't
leave
just
it at
pawn
that.
it off on somebody else. I think it's your responsibility, the board's responsibility, to make sure that this information is put up there in a timely manner. The other thing is on the website, there's some comments that were made during the Bog Road discussion by the Department of Public Works Director about the road reconstruction plan. It's not my plan. It was somebody else's plan, the prior director. But when I go on the town website, there's a road reconstruction plan on there. Am I supposed to not know that that's not the town's road reconstruction plan? It's obsolete. It's 3 years old. The roads that are on there haven't been done. So it's kind of like a book collecting dust on a bookshelf, only this is collecting dust on the town website. I think somebody should be responsible to make sure these things are being updated and that the information on there is accurate, timely, and correct. Guess that's all I have. Did you receive any information, I know it was requested at the November 5th meeting, regarding the justification to increase the fees for ambulance billing? I believe it was requested, wasn't it?
Well, I asked for a breakdown of it, but I think we,
Kidding.
The Board of Firewoods
What's-
minutes I have.
yes.
I mean, I just haven't had two seconds to put them up.
I mean, the other, I would say, did you,
They didn't meet
have
every
you contacted the Board of Firewoods for the
How
justification?
do I do that, Jack?
Chairman's right here.
How do I do that during the week, Jack?
Call the
his home
chairman, he's
telephone
right here.
number?
Call the fire chief.
is this,
All right, so the board requested information. You
Yep.
haven't received the information?
Well,
I think
we've
this is
received
it.
some information, but I'm saying, the chairman of the Board of
I think
Firewoods
this is it.
is here, and that's within their realm.
It's a comment, isn't it?
And this is public comment. We're not gonna have, all the answers for this,
Course
but I
not.
mean, you can call the office and, Naomi can forward some of that information.
Okay, the board had requested the information. I'm assuming they wanted it to help justify in their mind the increase, at least know why it was increased? And you don't know why it was increased?
We,
Chief Mazina, is this
again,
what he's referring to?
Jan, again, this is public comment.
You
Can I
know,
just
I
look
think
at it?
somebody's asking a question. I'd like to answer it.
Can I just, I hate to jump ahead. I'm here to address some of that.
Okay, he's gonna address it when he has department
That's
head.
enough.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other public comment?
Good evening, Helene Kirk. I'm glad to see that both the chief and the chair of the fire wards is here because I have a question concerning the contract that will be discussed or public comment for them next week. And I'd like to read something, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's Article 154:15, called Compensation, et cetera, of Chief and Expenses. The fire chief
the chief fire ward or fire chief shall be paid for services, such compensation as the council, alderman, or town meeting shall think reasonable, and the bills for the operation of the fire department, including but not limited to costs of apparatus and equipment, shall be approved or disapproved by the fire chief, fire ward, or engineer responsible, and if approved, shall be presented for payment to those town officials designated for this purpose by statute, local ordinance, or town meeting within the limits of the funds appropriate. So I read that first part of that sentence until the semicolon, the chief, fire ward, or fire chief shall be paid for services, such compensation as the council, alderman, or town meeting shall think reasonable. So that speaks to me that if there's a contract that needs to go into a warrant article. So I just wonder if that's the route that will be taken for this. Don't know if you can answer that, but I would like to put that out there, because that's how I read this, and I'm concerned. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comment? No other comment, then we'll move on to department heads, items and committee items. So,
Bob, do
you want the floor?
Sure.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. Minutes. As far as I know, we're up to date as
Yeah.
far as submission.
Well, I know you've sent me a lot of them, and you don't meet every month for some,
And I will almost say with some certainty, we've never posted minutes on the website. That's been done by somebody else.
somebody here.
Two, just to address a comment earlier was, and I wrote it in quotations about misspeaking. I don't believe that I did misspeak. And so, those are words from somebody else and not, I don't think pertain to what the issue was, which we were, and that was in relation to the memo that I had sent back on November 9th about the questions about ambulance fees. Yeah. So when I'm sitting in the audience just now and everyone's shaking their head like we've not received any information, that's not,
Well,
in my opinion, that's not true.
No, and I didn't think it was either. That's why I wanted you to
Okay.
see this. That's
Okay.
why I was asking the question.
Yeah. It's interesting that I've been here since 2011. I can't remember the time we've spoken more than 5 minutes about ambulance revenue. When we were receiving revenue, when we were underperforming, or whatever. It's interesting that this has garnered so much attention from the public. So I'm here tonight for the purpose of trying to answer your questions directly so that we don't have to go back and forth. If you have questions regarding the fees, and I believe we were trying to figure out the question that you had asked or wanted to ask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Beth got that late in the day, and so I have those available
Okay.
for dissemination. It's not my intent to reproduce the public hearing that was held at the Board of Fire Wards regarding this. A lot of questions I think that people have could have been answered if they had attended the meeting.
Next one.
not gonna act like I know what these all stand for. What's BLS?
Yep,
Basic life support.
Okay, and ALS?
Advanced life support.
Gotcha.
So it's
And-
an EMT, AUMT level,
Okay.
different levels.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. This is what I was looking for. This is what I,
yeah. And just to address the question of where, which goes back to your question, this question number one on the sheet, which I guess raised some concerns with the board, is that there's two different aspects to the ambulance billing as it relates to this and some of the questions that came up. There's the what is it that we charge, and there's the we collect it and we put it in a fund, and then that fund is used for capital costs. Ambulance, a truck, equipment, an ambulance, a fire truck, whatever it is. And so when I said that our costs have gone up, our costs have gone up. And those costs are in the operating budget. And the ambulance, what we charge as an ambulance fee is a reflection of what it costs us to provide that service. And so you think of ambulance fees almost as a user fee, as if you were gonna go play football down at Bolton Field, that you pay some sort of a fee to do that, or I assume that they do. And so the same thing with that is we have our operating budget. We look at what those costs are. We try to recover some, most, all. We don't even come close to getting all, but to recover a respectable amount of money that it costs us to provide that service. And then what was done long before I got here is they created that special revenue fund, which is where those proceeds go. I feel that ambulance fees should be a reflection of what it costs us to provide that. We hadn't raised rates in 5 years. It was time to do so. We were, when you compared us to Hillsborough County, we're under the average of Hillsborough County, and we are less than what many of our surrounding towns charge. So I feel that the rates are reasonable. And there's a couple of key points that are on your sheet, and I'll just share them because this came up the last time I was here with one of the people in the audience, was that if you're on Medicare, these rates, the increase does not apply to you at all. If you're on Medicaid, the rate increase does not apply. If you're on commercial insurance, it applies, and if you're self-pay and have no insurance, that rate applies to you. If you have difficulty paying your bill all at once, there are a couple of mechanisms that we have that can either waive that fee in some cases or set you up on a payment plan if need be.
What do you charge people that are in like Medicare? What do they end up paying? Because
So-
you're not getting the full $610.
No, so Medicare, I think I have that. So Medicare, because they are an insurance company, they kind of set a lot of the rules that we follow. And so Medicare says, because they're the big person on the block, that for a BLS call that we're charging, what is it, Joan? Is it 6 or 8?
610.
610. Medicare says the maximum allowable benefit is $364.98. And of that, Medicare will pay 80%, and then there's a 20% copay that goes back to the patient. If they have, I think it's Medicare Part B for the ambulance coverage piece, that'll pick up some, if not all of that. Roughly speaking, if you don't have that insurance, the secondary insurance, the amount responsible by the patient is typically it's like $100 on the ALS 1 call. We see that a lot.
Yeah.
Medicaid, so that's just as a comparison. So the BLS, Medicare BLS is $364. Medicaid BLS is $145. That's what they'll pay, which is not a lot of money for what we're doing.
Especially now that it's being increased to this.
Well, that's a comparison to something else, but
Yeah.
$145 for an ambulance ride is, we're not even covering
Oh,
costs.
I know.
at that
So
point.
is the increase really, what you're doing is by increasing the amount, you're trying to offset what you're not getting from Medicare and Medicaid? Is that what you're trying to do here?
No, we're
No.
looking at what it costs us to provide that service, and then based on the number of anticipated runs, what our collection rate is, what our payer mix is, and coming up with rates that are reasonable, that allow us to recover that expense.
But you don't pay for the labor, and the training.
No, the taxpayers,
The taxpayers are paying for that, so that
that's correct.
58% isn't really a true thing.
Sure
I
it
mean,
is.
it's gone up, but this increase isn't going back to the taxpayers. That increase is still gonna go into the fund that you have for
Actually,
equipment.
that increase, or that, when we recover that money, that 58% increase is going, if we recover it, is going back into the special revenue fund,
Right.
and it's being used later to offset the cost of our capital program.
Right,
And
I know
I
that.
don't know if you have that sheet that we worked on earlier today.
Oh, yeah.
Originally, we thought the question that you had was, what are the ins and outs of that fund?
This is, yeah, oh,
So we kind of looked at that.
yeah.
So since in 2012, for instance, we took money in
Yeah.
and we paid expenses, and then we had some sort of a balance left over that went into the special revenue fund. There's a lot of moving pieces, and so sometimes it gets a little complicated. Feel free to stop me at any point. So starting in 2012, we used to pay for our labor out of that fund, right? We diverted 90,000
90,000,
out of
yeah.
that. So we diverted the 90,000, we paid our billing expense, we issue refunds because sometimes we get paid twice for things or what have you. And we bought a fire truck for $375,000. All of that really no cost to the taxpayer. In 2013, we paid our $90,000, the billing expenses and refunds. Back then, we were collecting $100,000. 2014, we had $90,000 went into the billing fund, the special revenue fund. We collected at $98,000 that year. We're just barely have our head above water at that point. And we were writing off tens of thousands of dollars a year back then. And so once we made the purchase of that fire truck in 12, you could see that fund, there was no way that fund was going to recover to purchase an ambulance, let alone a fire truck. And so we put forth an idea of, let's move the $90,000 per diem expense from that fund to the operating budget, so it's relatively steady and even, so that we could build that fund for the future. And the Finance Committee saw the value of that. They supported that. And the same with the Capital Improvement Group. You could see the value. The money had much more value sitting in the bank, waiting for a large capital purchase, than it did spending on operating budget items, such as labor. So that was in, so in 16, we asked the voters, and they approved it, to move the per diem money into the operating budget so we could return all of that revenue stream to the fire truck fund. We sent because it happened April 1st, we paid a quarter, so we had $22,000 that went out the door for labor. We had, we purchased an ambulance that year, so that's $77,000, right, a 3-year purchase on that. So we spent $77,000 on that. We had our billing expenses, we had refunds, we bought a forestry truck out of that fund, and again, without going back to the voters and saying, yep, we love what you're doing, giving us money in the operating budget, but we need another $150,000 for other stuff over here. Additionally, because of the way the funds work with the state of New Hampshire, we also sent back $42,000 into the operating budget when we closed out that revolving fund for the per diems. And then in 17, we made our ambulance lease payment. Again, the billing and refunds, we put some money in the bank. This is our last year. We're going to make a payment probably in the next 30 days is the last payment on the ambulance. Again, without having to go back to the taxpayers to get that, to ask for any more money. The intent of the changes to the fund into the ambulance revenue piece, and ultimately goes back to some of the to the questions about the ambulance fees, is that in order to move that money into the operating budget for labor, was that we were going to not come back and ask for capital money in the future. We have done great things in the last couple of years from a capital perspective. We have our eye on 2023, which is where a fire truck and engine is due, and we're in the $450,000 range. That that we anticipate that the cost of that project. So there's a lot of moving pieces to ambulance billing, and rates are just one of them. I think that they're fair in the market that we operate in, and for those who have issues paying their bill, we have mechanisms to help them out. And for 60% of the people we see, approximately 60%, the rate change doesn't affect them.
So Bob, how many, now I realize this is only when you transport.
Correct.
So totally, how many calls do you have?
Well, department-wide, we do about 800, we'll be about 815 this year.
Okay.
60% of those are EMS related, whether from a car accident to plain old medical. We transport probably in the neighborhood of about 400 and some odd patients a year.
Okay.
And they're all unique in some ways. From a billing perspective, we kind of sort them out into 3 groups, which is the rates that you see.
How do your rates, Chief? The billing company takes a percentage of, obviously. What's their usual percentage for the billing?
6% of what's collected.
Of what's collected?
Yep.
So if you don't collect, they don't collect, that's what it...
If we don't collect, they don't collect. It becomes apparent very early on whether you're going to collect, because you either have insurance or you've had contact with the patient and you've established some sort of conversation back and forth. We still see a large number of patients who just you never hear from them again, especially people from out of state or out of town. And ultimately, after 4 months of trying, they go to collection. We'll work with anybody that wants to work with us. If you don't want to work with us, you're going to collections.
Well, if somebody doesn't have the means to pay for insurance, more than likely they're not going to have the means to pay for the transport. So do you waiver that?
If they meet our guidelines, we'll waiver them.
Okay.
Yep. And we do that. It's not as often as you think. We probably do that, say, 20 times a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, each month we get a report of where we're at with different people. It's on the patient to communicate with us. They get the bill. Every bill gives them instructions of what to do if they're having issues paying their bill. If they don't like our bill, they're probably not gonna like the hospital bill very much either. Yeah.
So right now, what's in the account? How much money is in the account right now as of the last quarter, October?
We don't deposit money quarterly, we do it really
Right, yeah.
once a year.
Be at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you've taken in this year?
Right.
Oh, we do.
Well, yeah, so I don't know off the top of my head, maybe you do.
I have like 100 to be transferred.
Yeah, I think we started the year at about 100.
Yeah.
So,
So roughly, that's what you're taking in a year right now, is 100,000, 120,000?
Yeah.
well, somewhere between 120 or 150.
Yeah.
It's really,
I think I figured it out to the end of the
Kinda
year. It
hit
might be
We've
like
been as low as,
150 or 60.
since I've been here, we've been as low as 98,
Right.
which is,
Around.
we weren't even covering expenses then.
Do you know what's in the actual account?
120,
120 is in there? Okay, but,
and I think I about have 100 down at TD Bank,
okay. All right.
so that the ambulance payment this year.
Okay.
And, as I spoke when we were here for budget, I believe I have a fiduciary duty to do what's in the best interest of the town and the department and the taxpayers and the residents, and I don't take that lightly. We're just trying to do the best that we can.
Now, this says proposed EMS billing rates. Did it get voted to do it?
Yep, so the Board of Fireworks had their public hearing,
Yes,
Whenever
a
that
couple of
was.
weeks ago, yeah.
and they voted to accept those rates,
Mhm.
and we're looking at a January 1 start on that.
Okay, where there's been a little controversy, I'll open it up to just questions dealing with that. Mr. Compagna, you had the biggest question on that. Do you want to address your questions for us?
Thank you. I think I understood his explanations best as I could, but I still have a problem of a rate increase, distinguishing a rate increase and the, as applied to the operating expenses. I think you separated them in your explanation, but I don't understand necessarily the justification. Just because your operating costs are going up, why necessarily the ambulance rate has to increase? And the only thing that I heard, and this is not to, I forgot the word that Mr. Hippler, pardon me? Yeah, slander. No, quite honestly, the justification, well, we're the lowest rate, of surrounding towns. Well, does that mean we have to be in a horse race to, become the leader?
What would we base our rates on?
Well,
If we don't base our rates on our tangible operating expenses, what would we base our rates on?
Well, would you allow me? Well, as you said, the last increase was, what, a half a dozen years ago, or somewhere in that area? And again, that was done here, and I was able to hear it. I didn't go to your meeting, when you had it. But and you even stated that it was set by Medicare, Medicaid? That's what you use?
Tonight,
Right, tonight you mentioned that?
Medicare is, whatever we do for Medicare, Medicare sets some ground rules and says that Medicare is not to be unique. right? If you're gonna bill Medicare, or if we're gonna bill Medicare, we have to bill everybody. And they have some other rules as well, but because they're a governmental agency, they negotiate what they're gonna pay for. I don't know who they negotiate with, because I think they just tell us. They tell us what they're gonna pay, because ultimately that's coming out of the government money. And we have to take what they give us.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody in the country that will say what Medicare pays covers their expenses.
Okay, and I can understand that,
Yeah.
all right? Because when I go to the doctors, you know, I have to pay something above and beyond what Medicare will pay.
Yep.
All right, but if Medicare sets the rate out of a $600 bill, if Medicare sets a rate for you, a payment of $140,
That's
they're doing
Medicaid.
they're doing that for everybody else in surrounding towns,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
So you're all on an equal playing field in that respect, what you get paid. But
Sure.
yeah, so what, and I don't expect you to have an answer, so these other towns that, increase their rates, I guess I could suspect that, that increase in rate goes into a general fund as opposed to a special revenue fund. So it enhances, operation expenses. Where in this town, it doesn't do that.
Well,
It goes into the special revenue.
I don't get how you make the leap to where the money goes.
I don't make the leap. That's why I say, there's the operation expenses, there's the special revenue fund. The special revenue fund is bolstered by the ambulance fee.
True.
Okay, so why do I hear that because of operational costs, the
Because
ambulance fee is going up?
we are setting our ambulance transportation rates so that they are reflective of what it costs us to provide that service to the community.
But what it costs you to provide that service to the community is funded by the taxpayers, by the operating budget.
Sure.
So you still have the revenue going into the special revenue fund. As a taxpayer, I'm still.
And I would propose to you that you get your money back when we buy a truck and don't come to you and ask for any more money to buy the truck.
I do understand that, but there's still the operational costs that are borne by the taxpayers.
If we put the money into the general fund, which I am not suggesting.
No, and I'm not suggesting it either. No, believe me.
Ambulance, so eventually they have to replace it, and it's gonna pay for it, so that's basically,
And
it's
then we're
still
gonna
on.
come back and say, thank you, but we need $500,000 to buy a fire truck. And so I think that even though that they're somewhat connected, even though they're somewhat connected between the ambulance rate that we charge, when we collect the money, it goes into the special revenue fund. I understand what you're saying is that, they're not necessarily connected, but they are somewhat connected. The rate that we charge is based on what it costs us and what costs us as a community. And we're recovering that money, and the mechanism that exists once we bring that money in is it ends up in the special revenue fund. And that's whatever RSA that is. That allows us to do that. Just like when the police take in detail. They go work a detail, that money all goes into this police detail fund, I believe.
Right, but that's a revolving fund, that's completely different.
But
Okay, I won't
But
take
similar, I mean,
advantage of
it's culling that money
Okay.
out.
Just cut it short. We've got to get other budget stuff to do, and you can go to the fire wards meeting next Monday and get some more information.
I understand what's being said, and I can't agree that it's offsetting the operating cost. I mean, it's a real stretch to me to take special revenue fund, which is being funded to support capital expenses, not operational expenses. So the justification to increase the ambulance fee is based on operational expenses, which the taxpayers pay for. I mean, he can just increase his budget to cover those increases in his operational costs, which is what normally would happen year to year. But it kind of leaves you with the thought, well, are they kind of increasing the fees to beef up this other fund? And I don't think it's saving. I understand it's saving money in terms of capital expenses, isn't? And I really hard pressed to see the connect the dots to the operating expenses. I don't think it does. So I don't think there's justification to do it based on operational costs. Increase your operating budget to cover those additional expenses, and benefit the people that use the service. They get a lower fee. We don't have to be the highest fee in town. I thought it was Medicare plus 10 or 15%. It was what a lot of towns do to figure out what their rate is, but I don't see the connection. It's unfortunate it's being put in place, but I don't see the connection.
Just, so under the department...
Appreciate you opening it up to...
and under department heads, would have a comment from head of the fire wards.
My name is Steve Roberts, and so one of the things about the fund, I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but I just want to say really quickly, one of the things about the fund is it does go to buy capital equipment, and the chief mentioned that one of the last things we want to do with that fund is to come back to the taxpayers and say, we need more money because we don't have enough money in there for this truck that's coming up. There's been a lot of speculation about how much money. I've heard the figure of $1 million kicked around in 2022 or 23, and that's just completely false. I'll give an example. We bought our last fire truck. I don't have all the information in front of me, but the last time we bought a fire truck, we paid $40-something thousand more because it didn't get approved the first year. I believe it was the third year of the quest. And that's an indication of how much that equipment has been going up over the last few years. One thing that was emission standards, we were seeing increases from the 2010 to the 2012 emissions increased by the government of $20,000+ just in the increased cost of the engine itself, not the truck, just the power plant. And so we had 2010, we had a big increase, 2012. I think there was another one a couple of years after that. So those are things that are increasing the price more than a lot of normal vehicles. Diesel engines, heavy duty diesel engines took the biggest hit on those increases. So now we're looking at the price of steel going up. So that's going to affect the price of our trucks. So we need to be responsible to make that happen. So that's one of the increases. What I want to say, too, about the hearing that we had is that if it was 5 years ago when we did this before, EMS billing is very complicated. And so it takes a lot of time to understand it. The chief, the finance director, we have a captain in the department that does our ambulance billing piece for us, and it requires a huge amount of time and to understand it. And to stand here and tell you I understand it all, I don't. But we spent a long time before the last hearing that we had, the 5 years ago that we had that hearing, preparing for that, reviewing the billing policies, finding out what we had to do as far as was the policy put in place at town meeting, could we do it at a board level, and we were told that we had to come before the Board of Selectmen to have the hearing, which we did. And it turned into people that didn't know anything about ambulance billing were asking the questions, and we were providing that information, kind of like here tonight. And at the end of, I don't know if it lasted an hour, John. I know, Chief, it was some time we spent kind of going back and forth and trying to answer the questions the best we could. And finally, at the end of it, the selectmen decided, we don't want to have anything to do with this, you go make your decision. And so, I don't mean to be rude, but frankly, you know, we felt like we had prepared very well for that, because we were told it had to go in front of the selectmen and they had to make the decision. So when we had our last hearing, we did it at the board level because that's what we were told we had to do. And so we did that. We tried to have the hearing early enough so that people could attend the selectmen's meeting if they wanted to, and come to that hearing if they wanted to. And we had one young lady that came to the hearing, asked questions. There was, I believe, a total of 3 people from the public that came, made comments, asked questions. We really appreciate that. And one of them came to the selectmen's meeting after the hearing and made comments during public comment at the selectmen meeting. So there was the ability to attend both meetings if people wanted to do so. So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to help everybody understand this. I wish more people would have come to the hearing, and then we could have avoided taking up all your time possibly. So that's all I have to say. Do you have any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, now we're going to move on to the discussion of the smaller department budgets with the finance director.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm doing our budgets. You can follow down through, but really not much has changed. Never does usually. Town office's expense is actually decreased by $672 total. Has to do with the mail and the town report. Those 2 decreases, photocopy service increase. What I did, I'm just gonna go down through it without. The legal expenses is the next one that belongs to us. What I did is kind of just followed suit with what we did last year. So the proposed is gonna be 72, which is 10,000 more than your default. The selectman's office, there's a decrease of $19,772, which is largely wage related, has to do with the contract. It's kind of a mixture. You can see it on the column that says increase and decrease. The contract and wages for the secretary, decrease in insurance premium, decrease in the auditors. The rest are increases. A lot of them you've already seen because of the wage part of it that Beth has shown you. Gonna keep moving, forever hold your peace, I guess. Cable committee, we altered it a little bit and decreased it by $100 total based on what was being spent. There is, that's simple enough to figure out. There's the town hall and office buildings, also known as THOB, is, you'll see, that has an overall increase of $8,362. This is the first year you've seen the electricity and the heat from all the buildings tossed into ours. Lawn care has an increase. You guys all saw those. Building maintenance, we upped it just to kind of be in line where we are spending currently, plus with the old buildings depreciating. The heat, based on the current pricing, is what we have there. And a lot of the increases is the heat. Moving on to advertising and regional association. Advertising, we increased based on, I mean, we have advertising, there's really no real game in town other than Concord Monitor or Union Leader, which isn't cheap. And we do a lot of, the purchasing policy, you have to put out the bid anytime, so that, we increased that. That's the actual amount of dues that's due NHMA. Street lighting, we increased 700. Health officer, we decreased 340 in the department. Welfare, we increased to $576. And economic development, Patriotic stayed the same, and economic development, just to keep the the budget alive, we left $1 in there. So we decreased it by 49. Granted, there'll be some discussion on some of the articles. We haven't even talked about legal, but I did what we did last year. And Beth's got the other smaller budgets.
Any questions on that? Okay. Anything from the Finance Committee on the town selectmen's budget? Okay, we'll move on to the next one.
Oh, Beth's doing the next ones.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the end of the proposals of the budgets. Like Naomi said, next Monday, actually tomorrow, I'll send you guys all by email the entire budget. If you can do some homework, look over it, ask us any questions from now till next Monday, but Monday come in, and we're really gonna take a good look at all the department heads will be here, so. I got the good budgets. There's no increases in the town officer salaries unless you guys want a warrant article. Elections is reduced because there's only one election in 2019. Tax collector, right now it's reduced. But we're gonna take a look at that contract. So it'll still reduce.
Yeah,
But we're gonna take a look at the Sanders contract, which is line 29, just to make sure it's correct.
right.
Assessing, the biggest increase in assessing is the Avatar contract. That's $14,000, what's budgeted. And the employees taking health insurance. My budget is going down, mostly due to the insurance premiums decreased. And the office supply line, I might leave it alone. I just want to make sure I don't need anything from now to year end. Town clerk's budget is being reduced, again, mostly because of the insurance premiums decreased. Trustees, they're increasing theirs because there's some members that want to attend the training at NHMA. Land use is going up ever so slightly due to mostly the raises at town meeting. Insurances are reduced by almost $32,000. Code enforcement is a slight increase. Oh, because the employee's taking the health insurance this year. Parks and Rec, they're asking for a little increase. They'd like to get some adult supervision down at the Chase Park, and they want to give out merit increases for employees returning. Conservation is a small decrease because they've never used their budget in its entirety. Economic development, I changed that to $1 just for a placeholder. As long as I've been here, it's never been spent. I don't even know what it's for. Good news is on the last page, the debt service, the interest is reduced because the principal is reducing on our bond for the garage. And we will not have an ambulance payment next year. So you end on a good note.
The one thing we do have to do next week, I know we're gonna go from top to bottom, we have yet to figure out, or discuss diesel fuel and gas prices.
If we get there.
Nobody's gonna give you a quote, not that's gonna be fixed. It's too up and down.
It's really
So-
dropped this last month.
Yes.
It's dropped in the last month, but it increased, I think it was higher than we budgeted for a lot of months. So I had asked Beth to to look at how much we were paying, and we could look at the average, but that always seems to come back to haunt us one way or another.
The average for
Because
the last 12 months is lower than what it was last month.
Right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't really work. So we have to have that discussion, because that's a lot of the departments. Beth has how many gallons they use. So we have to figure out the price per gallon to finish that number.
Okay.
That's why it says waiting on fuel price. But you aren't gonna find anybody that's gonna lock in for X amount for diesel fuel and X amount for gas.
Gasoline.
It's not gonna. And we use a lot more diesel fuel than we use gas. And that's the higher of the two.
And this coming budget is the last year for the greater payment?
Nope,
Wait.
ambulance.
No, it
Oh,
says
coming
this
forward?
coming,
Yes.
yeah.
2019 will be the
Yes.
last
last
payment.
one, okay.
Yeah.
That's
So there will be no short-term debt come 2020.
Okay.
And the only one other thing that might change is, I don't know what's going on with land use and code enforcement.
Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
decide what we're gonna do. Because he's actually gonna be done in April. So we need to,
April and May
so
1st.
you need to decide as a group how you wanna, are you looking for another code enforcement? Are you gonna look at maybe, I've tossed it out there, a land use coordinator, full-time, that can offer Wendy some assistance with a part-time inspector.
Yeah.
You could look at regionalizing, and sharing an inspector maybe.
Yes,
You
we'll
have an
have to have a
agreement?
we'll have to have a discussion about that, I guess.
Right now, we budgeted for,
Yeah.
like, what, status quo.
Yeah.
So,
Finance Committee, anybody have any questions about the? Okay.
So I just have a couple questions.
Could you give your name, please?
Dennis Aubin,
Okay.
Finance Committee. Sorry. I think I spoke with you before, Naomi, about the oil and fuel for the schools and relative to the town. Is there any way that we can get together with them between the town and the school to try and combine that to get a better pricing?
I'd love to. I told you that.
Because now they're buying at a separate time than we are, and, you know, obviously, we know volume could help offset that
That's what I
cost.
was
Yeah.
trying to do, and then the same thing with electricity.
Okay,
You can group buy electricity,
yeah,
and for some reason, I can't get them to do that.
okay,
They pre-buy all their fuel in June,
all right.
so
Is that something we could do too as well? Is that something we can suggest?
they
to
do it because of if there's funding left,
Yeah.
They,
buy.
they spend it out of their, what,
And they've also,
excess of their
now,
budget.
the high school is going to an alternative fuel.
right,
So they're going to.
should decrease.
They're going to a wood chip, so they're not gonna
Yeah.
have the same volume, so, I mean.
They still have that other system backed up though, right? So,
I would think
Yeah,
they'd have
that's
to
gonna be
have
what,
it.
I think,
Yeah.
a propane system is what they're looking at.
No, I mean, you and I did discuss that, and
Yeah,
I would
yeah, I
love to
just
see
didn't
us
know if
do
we
that,
could-
because you can buy in quantity, it just,
right,
you know, one time, 2 years ago, I asked, and it had already been pre-bought, I asked the rates, and I actually got a better rate,
okay,
you know? I don't know that there's a lot of shopping.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that they just kinda ask. I think it's Aaron Goss does all theirs,
okay.
and then I think it's Eastern Propane, maybe? I don't remember the propane company, but I know Aaron Goss does a lot of their stuff.
And do we know how much, in terms of fuel and diesel, you know, for equipment and stuff, do we know how many gallons we use of that a year? Do we
I
have
know
that,
Beth
or-
tracks that every month
Yeah,
from the fuel log,
yeah, yeah,
but no,
And
yeah,
in
it's a little
comparison-
bit, you know,
Yeah.
they also have the generator, right, that they need fuel for.
yeah,
But even, you know, number two and propane, it
right,
would be nice to group buy. It'd be nice to group buy electricity.
okay.
'Cause you can do a better job with a bigger number.
And then, what do we have for capacity in terms of storage for our diesel and all that? Does
The
anybody know
diesel's got
that?
6,000 and the gasoline has 4,000.
Okay.
I think that's the weak link in our fuel system.
Is the storage, yeah.
Yeah. Is that something we should probably look at in terms of maybe if we have enough storage, maybe we can buy in bulk in a greater capacity, you know, instead of
Then
Yeah,
you
we'd have
run
to
in-
worried about in
we'd
the
probably
long
have to
term.
do another tank.
then you
or-
run into the environmental issue with it, so,
Yeah.
you know, it may not be a cost savings
Well-
by the time you get done.
Could be looked at though, Dennis.
It
Yeah.
can be.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, thank you.
I don't have the answer on the first question.
Any,
Hey, Beth.
any other questions from the Finance Committee? If there's no other questions, you want to table these minutes until next
I don't know,
week?
you all done with budgets?
Yeah.
So just before anyone runs away and just for anyone that's out there, the intention is, I've invited the 3 department heads back for next week. And we're gonna go right from top to bottom. I don't expect to go every single line because that's like 600 plus lines. What I think we should do is have an idea of a few things
Right, where the key
to look at.
issues are.
You know, there's some certain things that you guys want to discuss a little further, but I don't anticipate us going 1, line 2, line 3. There's, you know, it's just not what we've done. So that would be on the 10th, so I expect that to be a lot of our meeting that night.
Yep.
Would be that discussion. Because that'll be the first time you'll see it all together. And if anybody has any more questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Beth. The next item is approval of minutes. I'd like to
You
postpone
should have the
those.
5th or 17th ready to go. You've had those for a week now.
Yeah, except for
I did the
the
19th.
19th and the 26th.
26 I don't have yet.
Yep, so the 19th and the 26th we'll postpone until next week.
Well,
We'll do the-
Jan's got hers done the
if you
19th.
want them. I don't know.
Well, I don't have them, so,
They got emailed to you today, you didn't get them till.
no, I didn't get them. Okay, we'll start with the 5th.
Mm-hmm. 11/5.
Yep.
I don't see anything on page 1, EJ.
No, I just wondered, did we get any answers back to Neil on the questions that were asked?
I'll find the 5th.
Oh, on the easements?
I have not, only because I've consumed her time with my deeds,
Okay.
you know.
I guess,
She does have that question, I just don't know when I'll get, I mean,
all right. Is the guy's name really Ricky House? Is it Ricky House?
where's that?
A person in attendance, it says.
Oh, it's
Ricky.
Houde.
Mickey Hood.
Okay.
Oh, somebody did write their name clearly on the sign.
Right, right. And I figured that. I just didn't know who the person was.
I didn't notice it.
I didn't have anything on page 2. I don't know about anybody else.
Two.
Page 3. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 6th line down, it says the Board of Fire Wards is a volunteer position. I didn't know if we should add elected in there. A volunteer
They
elected
are.
position or
Yeah,
whatever.
who?
Yeah.
It's an elected.
Yes.
And then on the next paragraph, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines down.
over to the end of this, actually, there's a semicolon. Instead of commented, I think it should be comments.
What are you talking about?
Before Mr. Proman.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And on page 4. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6. The 7th line up from, on the first paragraph from the end, should be award regarding the intent to award.
Regarding the intent to award.
A-W-A-R-D.
Can't find it. No, to award. It
Yeah.
should be an A instead of just
Yeah, in front of the word.
A-W-A-R-D.
In the next paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th line up, 75% of purchasing came from vehicle fund and 25% came
Same.
from unexpended fund balance instead of 2 because it already was.
75%.
Purchasing comes from vehicle
Came.
fund?
Came from
It was already done.
vehicle fund and
yeah.
25% came from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very minor. On page 5, the second paragraph, 1, 2, 3. The 4th line up, it should be Division of Fire Standards. They might be dire, but
Fire, yeah.
now I don't know if it's just the second line up. There's a capital A in front of the EMT. This-
A.
Okay,
Advanced.
advanced, okay. I didn't know if it was a typo. On page 6, the paragraph tax deeded property auction. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5th line up. Property at 48,000. And add a 0.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if this is, I mean, this might be something that I don't know what it means, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line up on the next paragraph under lawn
Two
care.
with the 2 X's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah,
Naomi said, like, the direct quote was that she said, like, 2 and change or something. So
Oh.
that was like a placeholder.
okay.
I didn't know
All
what
right,
the
so
actual
see?
amount was.
Yeah, okay, that's
I
fine.
don't know the proper way to notate that.
Change,
That's good.
2 with a plus sign?
2 plus.
I don't
Plus,
know.
minus.
With the plus signs, okay?
Yeah, $2 plus.
Even the X, I've seen
the
that.
plus
so
sign?
it's-
I don't know. Page 7, under bell tower. I think I could be wrong, but I think there might be 2 things in here. The last sentence, town administrator Bolton will follow up with Dave Huey.
Oh, that's.
I think it's
that's to do
regarding
with
the doghouse,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
regarding the town office doghouse project,
Yeah.
okay? That's it.
Nothing else? Make a motion to accept November 5th, 2018's minutes as amended.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And then moving to
17.
17.
The 17th, I thought were fine.
Yeah, I didn't see
I
anything.
didn't see anything in those.
Nothing on the,
No, we didn't see anything.
I didn't see anything.
I read it very quickly too, I didn't see anything.
make a motion to accept the minutes for November 17th.
Second
Is, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
We're
we'll
gonna hold on the 19th?
hold on the 19th and the 26th.
You're gonna hold on those?
Yes.
Okay.
Next is the manifest.
A lot of money.
Yeah, there is. The manifest is to order the treasurer to sign the payroll and accounts payable checks dated December 6, 2018, to include, as included in the following manifests. Payroll manifests for a total of $69,743.20. This is the weekly and the fire monthly payroll. The accounts payable manifest for $128,764.74. The John Stark Regional School manifest for $250,000 even. The Hillsborough County taxes, this is the biggie, $1,026,162. The Weare School District manifest is for $450,000 even, and supplemental accounts payable manifest is $1,211.17, for a grand total of $1,925,881.11. Do I have a...
You made the motion, so you need a second.
Do I have a second? That's what I was going to say.
I'll second it.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Administrators report.
I'll start with the government building one. I did have a conversation with Tom Walker, and I've also had an email exchange. And obviously, because of the weather, he's behind on other projects. So he had sent me a note stating, the email said exactly what's typed here. Due to the weather, the project at the bell tower will begin in the spring. But because we've given them a third, they're gonna start constructing the fencing, the corner posts, and the railings out of PVC during the winter months at their shop. But once they get done, they're gonna bring them here. He wanted to put them in the horse sheds, but I just think the DPW would be best.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, why
that's...
can't they go right up on the stage? Nobody uses that.
Oh, it'll go somewhere.
Well,
When
the
he
stage.
gets them, he'll bring them here.
Yeah.
And the stage would be fine too. I could just
Yep.
tell him that when he wants to come and bring them. I just don't like the idea of them being in a shed, but, so, other than that, he said he could have come and started for a little while, and then he would have had to go, but then it's gonna be twice the time of the lift, because he'd have to come back in the spring. So I think you're gonna get something. I don't know what PVC costs to do all that construction, but you're gonna get something out of it. So in the spring, what he'll do is he'll bring the lift, he'll take the roof up, and he'll do it all at once. It shouldn't be as long, because he's gonna have all the pieces constructed ahead of time. So obviously, the Gordon Brown buildings have to wait too in the spring. The security camera, I got an email today from Emily that Pasek has reached out to them, and they're gonna start on the project on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, so that's,
Good.
shouldn't take them very long, a few days. We'll see how that works. The tank in the basement, I received an email from Irving. The gentleman's gonna come out Wednesday, and we can see what the situation is and discuss it. I won't have anything more
Okay.
from them, but they're sending somebody out to look at that with me.
So that's what the tank is in the basement?
Not in the basement, it's
Underground.
actually, it's
Underground.
underground, but we talked about the whistle.
Yeah.
And I know they told me they couldn't install one, but they're coming out to see why they couldn't install one, so. Hopefully we'll have more answers at that point, and go from there. The other ones, there hasn't anything changed on the other items. On to the next one, I really haven't changed anything other than on 13, you're going to see, I gave you all kind of what's gonna be posted. This is not color, but this is
Yeah,
nice it's a nice flyer that I sent some information over to Mike. It's going on the front page this week, but then we're also gonna send this over there so it can be printed and put on the counter. It's color, but
Yep.
Why
we'll
does
s-
it say we're hiring on it?
I don't know why it says we're hiring. That is weird, it's in the background. Guess I'll have to ask him before I send it over, because I don't think it says that on, and maybe it is faint on the, where I printed it.
I think they do it for their,
Oh, as far as,
when they do the forums.
oh, true, okay. So that actually is part of 13. 14, I've supplied all the information back to Terry Knowles, and, it's basically gonna go from there. I'm out of the picture. 15, I had the report sent to me today. Sherry signed it, and I'll sign it, and then I'll share you all a copy. So, they sent it to me. And then this week, normal week, believe it or not. But I do have a few other things, and then I'll need a non-public under E. There's a couple of things I want to just bring back to the attention. There was a discussion with regards to the subdivision regulations and public hearings. There's a receipt from the union leader that the public hearing on changes to the subdivision regs posted in the public hearing on, for the public hearing in the newspaper on July 12th. So it had one on July 12th. It was also evidently, there was a continuation to September 13th as well. So, it's my understanding that they're going to take what they had and they're going to, sign it with the road widths that they came to that evening. So it was posted in the newspaper, there was public hearings. So I just wanted to verify that. There was also discussion about Cortland when Steve was here, and Steve did send an email, and I will send one back to Steve. There was discussion with regards to the easement, and cutting trees and things like that. The easement that we have in place, SHB or the Cortland Avenue Realty owns it now. They actually own the open space. We don't own the open space. We have an easement. In the easement, it tells you what you can and can't do. And I did spend Thursday, was it Thursday or Wednesday? Wednesday afternoon, maybe? Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday.
Craig Nichols, myself, Craig Nichols, that's an old. Craig Francisco, myself, and Chip spent a lot of time in my office talking about this, because I did talk to him about the monuments. And so Craig came up and explained that this is really, which it said right on it, and that's Judy's handwriting, easement only, no transfer. So the gentleman is been paying taxes on that right along. He's billed for that lot, so it's an easement only. And secondly, the monuments is part of what we're holding for a bond. So if he doesn't put them in, we have money to put them in, all the monuments. I know that was a concern. So, A, the monuments have been bonded. B, there was a concern about tree cutting, and I've read it high and low, and I'll be glad to just pass it on to you guys too. There's no way in here doesn't say he can't cut trees. So if the trees got cut, it's really his lot. But it does talk about the activity of what you can and can't do, can't be subdivided. There's no athletic fields, towers, mobile homes. There's no removing of fill or disturbances in that area. No outdoor structures such as signs or billboards. No mining, quarrying, excavation, removal of rocks, minerals, gravel. So there's things that can be done.
How many acres are we talking?
26.78.
And the town owns that easement?
The town has the easement. The SHB granted to the town of Weare through its Conservation Commission an easement. So he gets taxed for the 26.8 acres.
And we can.
He's
and
granted us an
And we
easement.
have an easement on it.
If we want to go, somebody wants to go in and walk on it, they can go in there.
Yeah, passive, low impact, non-commercial, recreational uses are permitted.
And he's paid the bond to have the.
Yeah, we have,
Plus the interesting fact is that Mr. Najah sat on the subcommittee with
Yeah, his bond consists
with
of
Bruce
$523,478.
Craig and Mr. Fulton sat on the subcommittee when they did that easement, so that was drawn up then.
Which had been a while. I mean, this was done
And
in
then,
2007.
Yeah,
It's 11 years ago.
yeah.
But there was intention to get it started 11 years ago, and then it didn't. And then one of the partners became ill and then passed away. So then they ended up selling it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not expecting everybody to remember what happens 11 years ago, because it's tough for me to, too. But I will reply in an email. I'll do my best to maybe just call him, too, but just to let everybody know that, you know what I mean, it is his land, even though we have an easement. And then, it looks actually very odd. Easement is around it, like a horseshoe. The property
That
sits
white
in...
mark,
Yeah.
That's
Really?
that's the open
Wow, that's
space.
weird.
and there's 26 acres there. Wow.
All the way, see, you come in off 114 and you go all the way around.
Yeah.
So his road comes in part of the open space.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
It just is an odd shape, but that was,
Yeah.
That's what it did.
that was what was approved.
Yeah, and he was spoken to about the dirt on the stone wall.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, I guess, all that much, but they'll get removed, supposed to get
Yeah.
Well,
removed.
it's right up on
Has
it.
to.
It's right
It
has
against
to.
it.
Yeah.
So if they go to remove it, they're probably going to lose the stone wall. Once you
If
pull
it's
it
done by
apart.
machinery.
It depends on how
I don't know, I haven't seen it, but.
it's,
So I just wanted, there was some discussion here, and he did email me today along with all the conservation, so I will reply to him. And then the only, I do have the service contract for the internet, not the internet, Jesus, for our IT.
IT.
I don't know why, I mean, I'll send it back to him, he's put it in my name for some reason. I'll send it back and ask him to put Ricky's name on it.
Okay.
And not me. And then I'll bring it back. It's the same price as last year. He comes here every other week, 12 months out of the year. He goes to the DPW, he goes to the safety complex, and he comes here. And then he's also able to remote in whenever we have a problem. We could call him up when the computers are not working, and
Yeah, he'll come.
and he'll, well, they can remote in.
Yeah.
Just give him a minute, and he does his thing behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
Jason has that at home. He can
Yeah.
go and get on
Yeah.
someone's computer and do the work at
Yeah,
home.
yeah,
not
there's a
have to
thing
go
that
out.
pops up and you have to just give them a
Yeah.
minute. So, I do have one thing under correspondence, you probably all had seen it, but, there was a recognition on the transfer station in the little Weare in the world. There was a recognized our transfer station, and it was from a Skip and Jackie Sullivan. It said kudos to Matt, Bill, Ken, Dave, Scott, Mike, and others from the department who chip in when needed. Tuesday through Friday, Matt and Bill, two-man crew, multitask all day long to keep up with the high demand of trash, plastics, metal, demo, swap shop, yard cleanup. Half the time with a sandwich in one hand, nonstop through all kinds of weather, extreme heat and below freezing temps. What teamwork, nonstop all day, and again, 75% of most Saturdays. Swallow a sandwich and keep going, and thank you for those who drop special treats and coffee at times. So it was a nice thank you
That's nice.
for them. So I just wanted it, in case no one does get the Where in the World, that
I think
will.
I remember getting that now. Yeah, after when you started reading, I
Yeah.
remember I read it.
So-
Yeah.
And then at the end, I would just like, under E, to discuss a couple of things.
Anybody else get anything under correspondence or with the
And
business?
what's E? What is E?
For legal?
Legal.
Oh,
If nothing else,
I had asked last week if we were going to have a copy of the fire chief's contract before the
Yeah.
public hearing.
you'll have to ask the Board of
No,
Finance.
Laura has a couple
Well,
comments
well, Laura's got
that
it,
she's
that's
got to change some wording.
now, will that go out to the public to vote on that?
It doesn't it can be handed out that evening,
Yeah,
and the Board of Fire Wards are the ones that vote on it.
yeah.
So it doesn't go out to the public to be voted on?
Nothing else under correspondence or other business? And I make a motion that we go into non-public under RSA 91A3, colon, E.
Second.
And at the end of that, we will adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.